Alrighty, welcome, guys. I hope you're enjoying your Sunday. I think I'm just gonna drop this as soon as I'm done recording. It'll get uploaded. We'll see. I'm feeling I don't want to say it's episode 1 because if you're a part of Patreon, you know I've been giving you a little longer episodes like this for about a month now, 2 months. So yeah, but I guess officially, okay, episode 1. I don't know what I'm calling this. Originally, I wanted the name Good, Better, Best because I really like that concept of your best always changing and not just looking at things so fucking black and white. Like it's either all in or complete self-sabotage. Uh, with that being said, I did something I don't do ever. Like, I never do this. I've never had a history of doing it. It's like deep seated. I grew up super eating disorder adjacent. I never order off like Uber Eats or Postmates when I'm alone. That's not a thing. Uh, it's not a thing I do. I'm in a fat loss phase right now. So particularly, not a behavior that I would say is like expected if you know me. I went ahead and ordered from 2 different places. Ordered cookies, and this is how you know. I'm new to this. I didn't understand the whole like pin code thing. I also by the time that shit got here, I was like, I'm tired. Like I'm for sure not going to see anyone. But like then they were calling me asking like, you have to confirm. I'm like, oh fuck, sorry, I didn't know this was like a new thing, a requirement. Usually, I need someone to force my hand. I need like a boyfriend, a friend to be like, oh, I really want to get this. Will you eat some? I'm like, oh, okay, I guess. Yeah, definitely. Please order from there. That's more my jam. But yesterday was not my best day. Yesterday was a little bit of a dumpster fire. That's okay. It's expected. I'm going through. Life is really lifing right now. So working through that. But that's not what we're going to talk about today because that'll just bum you out. Everyone will get all sad. Few people I've told about lifing, they get really sad. So yeah, let's just talk about drugs and competing and everything that's very surface level. So I had my webinar this week. It went incredible. I had 2 sessions, one on Tuesday. Attendance was pretty fucking good. I'm not gonna lie. It was way better than I anticipated. 120 attendees, and then Friday, not yesterday, Jesus. Friday's attendance was 140. So really, really solid out the gate. And like for the non-participants, people who didn't show up, I mean, it was a free webinar. That's the thing. I had someone who I guess I would consider a mentor in some capacity was like, you should do this free webinar in order to get yourself in front of more eyes and really get a litmus too for your audience. I mean, it'll give you new leads, sure, but it'll also tell your followers, it'll also showcase, like, it's free information, you know. It's an audition, it's a performance, you know. It allows you to show people that maybe aren't as trigger happy with like signing up for Patreon, or even like, you know, they like your reels because your reels are free. It'll give them something that's a little more in depth, and that was great advice. I'm really glad I did that. People seem to like it, and for the topic itself, nutrition for hormonal optimization, I had a lot of nerves around the design and the presentation itself because I'm like, it's so fucking broad. It's such a broad topic when you really think about it. And something like now that I've talked to a few friends who are in the industry who are very similar to me, I've gotten some good feedback from them. The ones who attended or the ones who, you know, like jumped in and like listened for a bit. They have busy lives, you know, content creating like 24/7, but they gave me a few minutes of their time. A few of them, handful of people that I respect the fuck out of, they claimed they really appreciated my ability to stay very like firm, like dig my heels in on the points of, you really should be doing everything that you can prior to any of the nuance that comes in fitness, whether that be reaching a state of hormonal optimization, whether that be correcting dysregulation, whether that be with drug use, I don't know. And that is something that I feel incredibly, I feel so strong about one's ability to audit their behaviors, their actions, and to recognize, okay, not all behaviors are weighted equally. So what do I mean by that? Well, for instance, it's one thing to, on paper, be doing things 100% to adherence. This is a concept I talk to my clients about all the time. It's a part of their subjective feedback that they fill in on their weekly check-in. And it's like, okay, did you follow the program? Yeah, you did, but you kind of know, you're like, there are things that I know I'm not actually doing the way I think you want me to be doing them. And that's what I mean is you have people that they will be on a program, but their perception of failure is going in, completing the workout, regardless of what that looks like relative to a decrease in velocity of the final reps. So you have this person who's like, yeah, I've been on this program for 6 months. I've been doing everything that my coach has prescribed. I don't know why I'm not seeing better results. Well, this is the point where we maybe need to get a little more nuanced. We maybe need to take a closer look at training videos, which I don't think you need to be advanced in order to take a look at training videos. I think that's something that we should be doing at early stages in someone's athletic career. We should be assessing intensity. We should be assessing form, not just for safety. Safety is rudimentary. That's of course we need to ensure they're lifting safely. What I care about is, are you lifting effectively? Are your efforts actually equating to lifting within an RIR, lifting within about 5 reps of true mechanical failure? Because I do think there are a lot of people who, they'll be like, yeah, I'm on a consistent program, and they actually are following that program, as opposed to someone who's like, yeah, I hit this body part, but I do different exercises every single time. Well, it's yeah, okay, you're technically in the gym, but the bar for adherence is so low. And I think particularly when we start exploring the conversation around drug use or taking extremes, whether that be with cardio, putting someone in a very, very large deficit, we really have to consider. Okay, what are this person's, what are their weaknesses from an execution standpoint? Do they consider what they're doing to be 100% adherent? Is it 100% adherent? Are they missing the mark on very impactful variables, such as food reporting, such as training intensity? These are things that you can go a long time without ever taking a closer look at. And you're just going to equate, okay, well, this is my execution. It's better than nothing. And that's okay if that's your standard. But whenever clients come to me and they're like, yeah, I am really interested in using an anabolic, these are all things I want to ensure are being looked at and are being properly executed. Really, when it comes down to making that kind of decision, you have to understand that just because we know that there's a reduced likelihood of these side effects occurring, there's no guarantee. There's no guarantee that you won't incur side effects. And that's the scary part about this. I think a lot of people have this misconception that, well, this girl did it and still looks like a girl. I don't hear any difference in her voice. So, what's the harm in trying this? I want to improve my body. Listen, I've used Anavar. I've used Anavar at 2.5 milligrams. I've used Anavar at 5 milligrams. I can tell you, it feels fucking good. People who take drugs, I will tell you specifically with Anavar, and I'm going to assume other drugs, I'm just speaking of the anabolics I've used. it feels fucking good. It is one of those things that it is very easy to convince yourself it is necessary, and that is the reason that these people look the way they do. I'm here to tell you it's not. It's not. It is a small role in their ability to have the physique that they have today. And even then, it might not even have played a significant role. There are people that use drugs all the time that ultimately it doesn't move the needle for them because they are failing to do the things that are necessary in order for that anabolic to work. So when you think about it, okay, anabolics, their ability to drive muscle growth. What is this based on? This is based on your ability to be in an anabolic state. Are you going to grow in a really a large deficit at the end of a contest prep? No, you're not. And the individuals who may yield some growth while they're in a deficit, I mean, they are doing everything correctly. It's not by accident. So you're with a coach. You want to use an anabolic, or maybe they're pushing the anabolic on you. Maybe they're suggesting it. Understand that it's hard as a coach. It's hard to create significant transformations. You have a natural athlete, it's going to take a while, particularly if they're under-muscled, which a lot of them are. A lot of people are under-muscled for this sport. Well, when the anabolic, when that's brought up, when that's brought to the conversation, you really have to consider, why would the anabolic work if what you're doing right now isn't working? It is going to facilitate faster outcomes. It is not going to facilitate impossible outcomes. It is not going to create a deficit for you. It's not going to create a surplus for you. It's not going to make it to where all of your sessions now all of a sudden you are training at the same intensity, yet that intensity is relatively closer to failure. If you're someone who is doing extremely high volume and you're kind of stopping short, like RAR 8, 9, 10, which is the case for a lot of people. I see this, all of my clients, majority of them, 90% of them, send me videos, training videos. There are so few people who I can tell, I can count on less than one hand the amount of people that I've had come to me who have sent me videos and I'm like, yeah, your intensity, it fucking rocks. That actually is an RAR of 2. Very few. Everyone thinks they're training hard. Training hard, hitting the target rep range, that is not failure. That's not always failure. Sometimes it is, but not 100% of the time. And that's what we really have to hone in on, is that anabolics, they can drive training performance. But the key word there is they can. They have the possibility, the potential to do so. They will not drive it unless you do. They'll give you the ability to have increased performance. But unless you actually execute on that, unless you capitalize on it, take advantage and get to a point where you are close to true failure, nothing is really going to change. So then we start thinking about, okay, what are the things that really need to occur prior to the inclusion of the anabolic? Well, the timeline needs to be in order. It needs to make sense. You need to be in a position where you're not so fat that putting the anabolic in place is going to be a little upsetting, seeing body composition shift into a slightly softer composition, because ultimately it's going to pull water into your muscles. What you're going to find is that most people will see a very acute increase in body weight that might resemble a more watery look depending on the anabolic, even with Anavar. I remember, I used Anavar. I've used Anavar in contest preps. I have only ever once used it in a state where I was not in a contest prep. And then I wasn't doing things correctly. My training was such dog shit at the time. I grew. My first cycle of Anavar was prior to competing in 2020. I put muscle on despite being at such a high volume and so far away from true failure. I was doing so much volume that, I mean, it accounted for something, but that's another conversation. Your timeline has to make sense. Are you in a position where you're okay with that weight gain? Are your hormones in a position where they can take a little bit of a hit? Because you have to understand that all anabolics, they're going to have suppressive effects on testosterone, estradiol, progesterone, your HPO axis. These hormones will be affected by having the anabolic in place. Your body is going to recognize the anabolic and going to say, okay, cool, we've got this covered because of the exogenous input. We don't need to endogenously produce these hormones to the same extent. Now, if you're someone who's already suppressed, if you're already amenorrheic, if you're already anovulatory, this should be a concern. So what else? Okay, well, having your training modulated in a way where the exercises make sense, you're able to consistently lift at whatever volume that is for you, meaning the working sets, the target rep ranges, the exercise order, all of these aspects of training. Like, training is the thing that I really think naturally, I think that it's going to play the biggest role in your ability to see progress quickly. I was doing things incorrectly for the better part of my career in bodybuilding. Now, in 2021, I started working with John Jewett. I had him take a look at my training because, frankly, like, when I was with Shane, he wasn't doing my training. Like, I know he does training for a lot of people, but he was like, you're doing everything right. Like, don't change anything you're doing. Like, you look great. Never was there a program given. Now, I was injured during my time with him. And I got to the point where I was like, I think it's because of how much fucking volume I'm doing. I'm doing so much volume, and it wasn't sustainable. It wasn't ideal. So I hired John Jewett in 2021. I hired him for weightlifting coaching. So he started programming my training. I would send him videos every week. He would give me feedback. He did teach me generally how to work at a lower RIR. His program was very good. I worked with him for about 6 months, give or take. And then I kind of just did my own thing. Like, we went, the relationship then evolved into more of a mentorship, and then eventually me working for him and coaching under J3U. That lasted for about a year. And then a few months after that, so 2023, last year, I hit up Jordan Shallow, with owner of Prescript. I did a consult with him because I am a big fan of the information that they put out. And I do think that with time listening to their podcast, I was like, man, like, there's a lot that I'm missing, even being on John's program. And I think that this is still an avenue I need to explore. I think this is something that I can still squeeze more out of before going the anabolic route relative to being in an off season. So I did a consult with him, had him review my programming. Things dramatically improved, honestly. Like, the advice that he gave me and the recommendations he made, I was able to see growth in a deficit. Like, it was insane. And like, my training volume went from 20 working sets every session down to like 12, 13. And I mean, the movement patterns, like, I would say, like, it was that in combination with really honing it on, how do I get within 5 reps of failure? How do I land that? So every time I'm in a working set, I'm as efficient as I can be. And I think that's why I saw a lot of the growth I did this year. Then I transitioned into a full growth phase from October, November, December, a little bit of January. And I found that, okay, well, even more growth was able to be pulled out from there. But when you think about this, it's like, I was training so poorly, so incorrectly for such a long time, because that is what I saw other people doing. That's what I saw these top girls doing. I bought into the whole, oh, we need to like bikini build, we need to tone. And like, yeah, there's the idea of like toning. When I hear like bikini bodybuilding, like it drives me insane, because I think it's just a repackaged version of toning. And I think when you approach this from like a biomechanical, a functional anatomy standpoint, it's like, what the fuck does that even mean? Like, do you want muscle or don't you? Like, yes, there are movements that don't make sense. There are body parts that don't need any emphasis for the division of bikini. Guys, like, I don't train chest, arms. I don't train those. I don't train back nearly as often because I have a lot of development in my back. I do very minimal quad work. I don't do any isolation hamstring work because I'm doing RDLs 3 times a week. And even though it's glute biased, I still know there's a pretty decent amount of hamstring recruitment that's still coming from that. I've been able to see even in my back post, even at 137, I'm like, I have some like pretty chonkster hamstrings. Like I see the line. So like I should probably not do the direct isolation work on my legs because I'm getting it from somewhere. Some part of my program, my hamstrings are developing. So, I mean, there's no additional need. And same thing for quads. I'm not doing leg extensions. I'm doing very minimal leg press anymore, only because I know I'm like these movements, like the split squats. I am doing some kind of squat modality as well, at least one day a week. I'm finding that I'm getting some quad recruitment. I'm getting enough quad recruitment to continue to see growth despite not having leg extensions in my program. So all of this to say, when we really, really get into the things that matter the most prior to the introduction of an anabolic, whether that be for a competitor or non-competitor, I mean, the number one thing for me is I need that person's training to be dialed in. I need them, yes, to be training consistently, obviously. That's like the most obvious aspect to this. I really need their intensity to be there. And I would say even above like their exercise programming, I need that to be sound. Even above that, I need the intensity to be there, because even if they're going in and like just winging it, even if it's not optimal from an exercise standardization, I guess, standpoint, or the modalities aren't the best, but they're still good. Okay, like I'll take that as long as the person can consistently lift at the right intensity. That to me matters so much. And then past that, you know, we look at like nutrition. Okay, I need them to be willing to eat in a surplus. Well, guys, I've had clients who they come to me, they're like, hey, I want to grow. And I start their plan. I give them their plan. And we dive a little into it and they're like, ooh, no, I'm uncomfortable. I really want to pull food down. This is literally the only way to achieve what we're trying to achieve. I know it's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be uncomfortable. For some people, not dieting is uncomfortable. And for those people, particularly the under-muscled ones, the ones that want to be competitive in the bikini division, we have to really be honest about what it's going to take. It's not going to take overshooting 30, 40 pounds above stage weight. You don't have to become that heavy, but you do have to be okay with gaining a little bit of weight. And if you do it in a controlled fashion, if you do it in a manner where like it really is an increase of like 0.25% every week or every 2 weeks, I mean, this is pretty conservative. I know it's a lot to ask of someone, particularly if they're coming from a background where they are pretty disordered, but it's what needs to happen. And if someone can't commit to that, like I gotta draw the line in the sand at some point. I'm not just going to tell you like, yeah, go ahead, we'll throw some Anavar in. I'm like, no, like you can't even do this thing. This is the hard thing that I'm asking you to do. The training, the data reporting, the committing to the deficit, the taking consistent pictures and measurements and not letting it derail you. That's the hard thing. Actually taking the anabolic, whether that be oral or injectable, that is the easy thing. Don't trick yourself into believing that, you know, when you're advanced, that's when it's time to to make the decision to take the anabolic. Like, it's not just a matter of making the decision. If you're going to do it correctly, you need to do all of this prep work. You need to have it dialed in so that you can even discern, like, hey, has progress slowed? And I spoke about this. I spoke about this in a recent reel. If you can't answer if progress is slowed down, then we shouldn't have the conversation, because that tells me, like, if you don't have a very clear idea of, like, I at one point on this same program was making progress and now that progress is non-existent or is like come to a very, very gradual increase. Okay, well, if that's the case, then what we need to do may be incorporate something that's going to enhance the rate at which we're seeing this progress. That might be an anabolic. But I got to tell you, there's a lot of people who are just making that decision, and it's based out of boredom. It's based out of frustration. It's not based on a cessation, an impedance of progress even. And I think it's our job as coaches, as pros, educators in the space. I think we have to shift the focus less away. Like we have to shift the focus away from the drugs, less towards what anabolic or what PED do you need to yield these results. And we have to shift it more to these behaviors are the reason you're not seeing progress. An anabolic will not satisfy the deficiencies in your program. The anabolic is going to facilitate faster progress. It will not do the work for you, which is such an overused phrase, I know, but it really won't. It's not going to put you in a deficit. It's not going to put you in a surplus. Anyways, I hope you guys like this. Let me know what you think in the comments below. If you would, I'm going to be posting this across multiple platforms. Go ahead, leave me a review, leave me a comment, give me 5 stars. As always, I will see you in the next one.